against its rivals, even if they're now less powerful than they were. Otherwise, no progress will be made to break the cycle of retribution that has tainted Moldovan politics. So, to sum up now, what the U.S. can do. The outcome of these elections is not an end in itself. It's just really just a beginning. It's setting the stage for possible reform. Here's what the U.S. can do. First, shine a spotlight, as we're doing here today, and thank you for the Commission for that, on Moldova to keep attention focused on the country's democratic development. High-level visits to Moldova give more bang for the buck than they do to many other countries. Should encourage principles like reconciliation, collaboration, and reform over personalities, while steering clear of being drawn into somebody else's fight. Provide greater aid to Moldovan society and political parties and civil society. NDI and IRI could do quite a bit more here. Make legal reform a top priority. Everything else really flows from legal reform in Moldova. The AVA SULI program has done very good work in this area, but much more needs to be done. Ask the MCC's Board of Directors to take a careful and expedited look at moving ahead with compact status for Moldova. Standards must not be lowered, of course, but neither should Moldova be judged more harshly than other countries that have already passed into the compact status. And finally, maybe in a burst of optimism, in the spirit of reset, the U.S. should encourage Moscow to engage in real, sustained, good faith negotiations in the 5+2 format to try to resolve the Transnistrian conflict. It would do a lot of good for Moldova. Moldova's people have expressed their desire for a better future, and now is up to their leaders to follow through with concrete results. The reform steps I've outlined in this briefing are by no means simple, but they can be accomplished with focus, dedication, and the appropriate assistance. If implemented, they'll make a lasting improvement in the lives of the Moldovan people. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and look forward to talking and answering questions.
Thank you, Ambassador, and I'd like to thank the whole panel for your statements. We have now quite a bit of time to start. I will start us off just the end of your testimony, Ambassador O'Neill, as far as the sort of the conflict, the so-called frozen conflict in Transnistria, the 5+2 format, the prospect of how the Russians may be held to this, and also, since we have some unique visitors here from Vienna, a question I have is what, in a few months here, we're facing the historic Kazakh chairmanship of the OSCE. It's the first time a post-Soviet state will chair the organization. Kazakhstan, as no secret, has many shortcomings in terms of its own keeping its own OSCE commitments, and this was a decision that was not without controversy, certainly in Vienna and certainly here in the U.S. Government. A variety of views around that, but I'm just wondering what that portends for Moldova and for the conflict itself. And Ambassador, you were appointed by the Belgians. Does this mean will the Kazakhs replace Ambassador Remler? Is there a term set? And is there anything positive to think about this? Is that something the Kazakhs might be able to make some headway? One of the things that is so interesting about this conflict is, unlike, of course, Nagorno-Karabakh and some of the other conflict jobs in Georgia, particularly here in August, it was just a year ago we saw a Russian invasion and an unfreezing of a conflict. The one in Moldova is interesting because on the one hand it looks so solvable, and on the other hand, I guess because it doesn't extract such a high sort of constant price in terms, you don't have cross-border sniping, you have on any given night in Chisinau you can see cars with license plates from Tiraspol eating at the nice restaurants in Chisinau. And I might add, we keep talking about, it's in the title, about how Moldova is Europe's poorest country. At least I visited a few times, and when I was there last April, it certainly didn't look it. Certainly life in Chisinau is, and even traveling throughout the countryside was not nearly what I had expected it to be from hearing various reports. So I'm just wondering, is there any reason for optimism? I know following the events of April, it looked like this would be a real setback. And also, is there anything really to say about again, the inability of people, I think, in Korsava to be able to vote. This little enclave that I believe is on the other side of the river. I know they tried in April and were blocked. I don't think it was possible this time. So, Ambassador, any other questions to throw out, get the ball rolling?
I'm a graduate of Georgetown. My question is to actually all of the panel, but specifically to Ambassador O'Neill. And what would happen to Moldova if U.S. doesn't give that assistance, doesn't support, doesn't pay that much attention to it? And if Mr. Andrei Galbu would also like to address the question of you.
This question is from Christine.
Because without civic education, without voter education, without any kind of this kind of education, it's hard to believe that people would make more sense than they do now. Thank you.
Elizabeth Anderson. I'm an assistant professor at American University, and I've been traveling to, living in, working in, or conducting research in Moldova for the past 12 years. And my question is with regard to the State Department's change in Moldova's ranking with regard to human trafficking that happened last summer. And it seemed to be caused a little bit of ripple in Chisinau when I was there last summer, but I've been wondering if that's had any effect at all on the government's actions towards human trafficking with their transparency. Has that had any positive impact?
Sure, with pleasure. There's a lot of questions, and I'll try to take them one by one. On the poverty issue in Moldova, look, of course, the visitor to Chisinau has a different impression than one who gets out to the countryside. And you've been in both places, and you know.
I was in Belts and Soroka.
Right, so you've seen the contrast. And unfortunately, what we've seen over the last 8 years has been remittance-driven, conspicuous consumption behavior. And the fundamentals for economic growth to unlock the potential of the Moldovan people, which is great potential in this country, have not been set in place, which is why one would hope that a new government would take a new look at disaggregating personal interest from economic benefit to the country. In any event, we're going to see a lot less of that conspicuous consumption in Chisinau because of what's coming. Moldova has had been a little bit insulated or had a lagging indicator with the economic problems because people were working overseas in Russia, in Western Europe, the United States, and we're seeing a real problem in them keeping their jobs, particularly in construction and roughnecking and heavy, physical industries, physical labor. And so it's going to be a very serious problem coming in, economic problem coming ahead from Moldova. On Transnistria, look, I've long advocated that it is not wise to wait for someone else to solve this problem. Yes, certain great powers hold the key to resolving the Transnistrian conflict. There's no doubt about that. But Moldova can do things for itself, to help itself. And I've long advocated it should make itself more attractive to both the European Union to be drawn in and to the Transnistrian region to draw it in to be part of Moldova. And those things, I've listed them today. Again, economic reform, civil protections, freedom of the press, no politicized prosecutions, fighting corruption, fighting human all these things that make Moldova a more attractive place. By having a greater contrast between how one lives, how a young person, say, lives in Moldova versus in Transnistria, is the most effective, the most convincing argument. Doesn't mean it's going to work, but it's better than sitting around and hoping that some great power will come and solve this problem. It's not going to happen in the near term, so it seems. And then on Korsava, of course, we've seen this problem repeatedly. I was the monitor, my team was the monitor in 2007, because the actual official missions can't go on the left bank. And we had violence in Korsava in 2007, the polling place, with Transnistrian and Moldovan militia and police fighting. It was terrible. So in a way, this represents a small improvement that there was no fighting, although, again, people were denied the right to vote, and that's not acceptable.
Thank you. Also, I would like to second most of what Ambassador O'Neill mentioned on the Transnistrian track. And as I mentioned in my statement, regardless of what the new makeup of the parliament and what the new government is, the settlement of the Transnistrian conflict, the reintegration